This happened to me about 6 months ago in Australia. I was walking home from a friend's house at around 2 or 3 a.m. It's about a 20-minute walk along a couple of medium-sized streets. The streets were always really quiet and empty, but I'd done this walk multiple times before without any issues. I was pretty tired and still a little tipsy, so I was just kind of going along. As I started to go up a hill, I got this sudden urge to look behind me. For no real reason, really. I glanced back and saw that a tall, skinny guy in a black hoodie was walking along the same road in the same direction as me, maybe 80 to 100 meters away. I should also mention that I'm a short female, but I wear men's clothing and hats, so I don't really have to worry about getting hassled by men as much as some other girls do. But I was still aware of the fact that we were the only two people around and that there was plenty of dark places along that street. So, a bit further along the walk, I glance back again and see that he's closer than he was before, like maybe 40 meters away this time. I told myself I was just being paranoid and he was only catching up to me because I was walking so slow. I still sped up a little bit though, and felt my heart beat a little faster. After 5 or so minutes of power walking, I stop at some traffic lights to cross the road. And when I stopped, I heard his footsteps behind me and realized how much he had caught up by now. He was definitely aiming to keep up with me. I immediately crossed the road, barely checking the traffic, and looked back at him from the other side. He still had his black hoodie on and we were in a dark section of the street, so I couldn't really see his face or anything. When he started to cross the road towards me, I was telling myself not to start running yet because I felt like he could probably outrun me and catch up before I could get to my house. My house is on a tiny side street coming off the larger road that we were on. I could still hear his footsteps, power walking, keeping pace just behind me. As I'm about 5 meters away from my street, I speed up a little more without actually breaking into a run. I started to cross my street, trying to act as though I was going to keep going past it down the same road. When I was about halfway across, I prayed that the high fences on either side or the darkness of the street would give me some cover. I sidestepped as far as I could into my street. I turned sharply and started absolutely sprinting as fast as I fucking could down the middle of the street. I sprinted straight past my house to the footpath at the end of my street that joins to another road. The first half of the path is stairs because it's a really steep hill up to the road. So after bounding up the stairs, 3 steps at a time, I turned around and saw the hooded guy sprinting down my street coming after me. I have never felt such a huge shot of adrenaline before in my entire life as I did when I saw him running at me. I thought I had already run as fast as I possibly could down the street and up the stairs, but the adrenaline went straight to my legs and I started flying up the last half of the steep path like it was nothing, like I was running up a moving escalator. When I got to the top, I could either turn right or left. I turned right and kept sprinting along the road past 2 houses that had high fences and hedges until I got to a house that had only a small garden bed in front of it. I jumped over the garden and crammed myself into a bush. I was so scared. I had to hold my hands over my mouth to stop panting so loudly. This street was deserted and silent, so I easily heard the hooded guy's footsteps, just pounding up the hill. I heard him stop, but he was breathing really heavy, so I peeked out to see what he was doing. He was at the top of the path, clutching his side, bent over like he was gonna puke, looking left and right up and down the street. He then made up his mind, spat on the ground, and then turned left. I watched him jog away, still looking around everywhere for me. As soon as I realized he was out of sight, I laid down on the ground and let myself pant and breathe for a bit until I felt like I could walk again. All I wanted was to be home. I kept on going to the right, further down the street, because it connected with the road I was on before, so I could circle back to my house and keep some distance from the hoodie guy. In the end, I made it home safe. I'm going to give a bit of a backstory first before I begin this story. It's almost the end of summer, we only have about 2 weeks left, and I've been trying to cram as much activities in as possible. I'm an 18-year-old male and I don't have my license, so I have to walk and take the bus everywhere. I've never really minded though, as I like walking. So my friend and I wanted to have a night out, so at about 5 p.m. she picked me up and we got pizza and teriyaki before heading back to her house and getting high with her boyfriend. At about 2 in the morning, I decided I should get home. I didn't bother asking my friends for a ride because they were already asleep and I always felt really bad for asking for a ride, so I gathered my things and started the 5-mile walk out of town and to my house. I'm not really a paranoid person, but I always carry some form of a weapon with me just in case. Tonight, it was my pocket knife, but during the school year, I have at least 3 mini screwdrivers on me at all times. I'm a pretty big guy, 5'11", pretty built, and I'm confident enough in my ability to take care of myself. So I started this walk, high out of my mind, at 2 in the morning. I'm on my 3rd mile heading towards some apartments when I notice offhand that there is a man about 100 feet behind me. As soon as I see him, he pulls out his phone and begins talking on it. I brush it off and continue on my way home. A little ways ahead, another man comes out of the apartments and just stands in the middle of the sidewalk up ahead, effectively blocking my path. At this point, I realize that something is most definitely wrong. So I stop walking and just look at him. He's tall, maybe 6'1", and his grin was really unsettling. I hear the man from earlier before and I feel him grab my left arm and tug me sharply backward. My first reaction is to reach into my front pocket and grab my pocket knife. His friend has already started walking toward us, but he hasn't noticed that I'm reaching for anything. So it was a complete surprise to see me pull out a knife and stab his friend in the thigh. He yells and lets go of my arm, and I quickly sprint away from the two of them into some bushes alongside the apartments. I stayed there for a bit. My phone had died while I was at my friend's house, otherwise I would have called for help. There was a bit of cussing, and then they went searching for me, but they gave up after a while. After what felt like ages, I found myself on the main road again, blissfully alone. The rest of my walk was okay, and I never ran into anyone after that. I made it home safely. This story goes back a few years ago when I was a 17-year-old high school student. Every day I'd walk the 25 or 30-minute journey to and from school. There was a shortcut I could take to my house that took some time off of the walk, and as a nature lover, the shortcut was very enjoyable. I've included a diagram since the setting of this story is not very easy to describe, and sorry for my shitty 3D representation. I'll put it on screen right now. Whenever I'd walk home alone, I would take this shortcut to enjoy the small amount of forest we have in this medium-sized, moderately busy city I live in. My shortcut was pretty well traveled, and I would occasionally see some other people walking from their neighborhood towards the busy streets close by, or other students walking home from my high school or the college. But other times, there would be nobody except me on the path. To give you an idea, the path was definitely not groomed, but it was traveled enough you could make out a path from being trampled over the years. The shortcut started off from a busy road by my high school and went into a low-lying open wooded area with some small ponds. After a few minutes of this, I could veer right up the big hill towards the street parallel to my street. One day, I was walking home from school after staying a bit late for extra help, and a few minutes into my shortcut, I noticed a guy standing off the main path a bit, seemingly minding his own business and talking on his cell phone. There was an open backpack sitting on the ground by his feet. Growing up with overprotective parents and in martial arts, I have always been a very cautious person and taken a lot of details, especially being a young girl out walking alone. This wasn't unusual by any means, since the entire low-lying area is traveled and there are numerous paths off the main path leading different directions, since it isn't a thick forest. sort of like a free-for-all for walking. Sometimes people would stand off the busy road while waiting for the bus stop close by, not wanting to stand in all the traffic fumes while people sped by during rush hour. The only thing I took caution of was that I had been seeing him there a few times that week and I had never seen him before. But, oh well, maybe he was a college student or just moved into the area. This time walking on the shortcut felt different though, possibly because there was no one else on the path today, but I started to get this bad feeling in my stomach. The one everyone has a hard time describing, but most people know too well. Something wasn't right. But by this time, I was already well along my shortcut and I decided to blame my feelings on me being paranoid, which is really not uncommon of me. I kept an eye on him out of my peripheral vision walking by and he continued to talk on his cell phone and didn't seem suspicious to me, so I continued on my merry way. I must have walked 20 or 25 meters away when the guy stopped talking on the phone, and I felt an even bigger feeling of dread in my gut. I turn around to see him crouched over, phone gone, fidgeting around with some sort of cloth and a brown glass bottle. Before I had a second to register what the fuck he was doing, his head shoots up in my direction and the look in his eyes is a terrifying mix between "I've been caught" and "I'm not stopping now." He drops everything, leaving his shit behind, and starts sprinting straight for me, cloth in hand. At this point, I'm too far away from the busy road for anyone to see me in the low-lying woodland with this crazy fuck, and I'm too far away to scream bloody murder. My first instinct in that split-second decision is to run towards my neighborhood. I decided this all as I turned around, throwing my heavy backpack on the ground and sprinting as fast as I could, starting up the hill toward my neighborhood. Judging by appearance, this guy looked like he could break me in two with no effort, and I trusted my flight response more than my fight response. Plus, I didn't know what the fuck he had in his hand. All throughout school, I had been the top cross-country and track runner in my entire school out of the female and male teams. My running had been my savior on a few other creepy occasions, but soon into the chase, I knew it wouldn't be enough this time. This guy was fucking fast as shit, and I could tell he was slowly gaining on me without even looking back. I finally see some fenced backyards up ahead, and I'm hoping people are home from work. I start trying to scream help as much as I could with my out-of-breath and useless voice. I make a split-second decision to start jumping fences of people's yards, hoping this guy's hurdling skills are shittier than his running. The first fence throws him off, but by the second into the next yard, he is on my ass and I feel him coming insanely close to grabbing my leg. I am shitting myself at this point. I see no cars in driveways, no sign of anyone home, and the only thing that is keeping me from panicking and wiping out in my exhausted state is thinking that I may not ever see my family or friends again. The next yard belongs to people I know rather well, including their dog. Necessary background information. This house was close to my street on the street parallel to mine, and I have come to know their dog rather well since they recently moved in. My friend hated the shortcut, and sometimes I would walk to school with her on the street down the hill to the busy street. This dog was huge and an absolute maniac. Usually, when kids were walking to school, they would put him in the backyard instead of their front yard since he would growl and scare the shit out of the kids walking by while he was tied outside. I love animals, so every time we'd walk by, I'd talk calmly to him through his menacing "I'll fuck you up" barks. Every time I did this, he'd be slightly less vicious to me, until one day the nice people who lived there gave me a treat to give to him, and after that, the dog was a nice stop on the way to school. The dog's name is Leo. With that next yard and my newly acquired friend in sight, I had never felt hope like I did in that moment. By some insane stroke of luck, they let him out in their backyard for the afternoon while they were at work. When Leo saw me frantically running toward him, he started wagging his tail, then looked to the guy chasing close behind me and he started growling. I thought this would be enough to get the guy to fuck off, but no. He started to jump over the fence the second after I did, but the dog jumped up and his teeth came so close to his face that the creep fell backwards into the other yard straight on his ass, right as I fell into the dog's yard on my ass. The creep and I stared at each other out of breath for a few seconds while the dog was barking and jumping like mad at the fence at him. Maybe he was assessing if he could take on the dog or not. I prayed that the creep didn't have a knife or something like that. The guy looked angrier than I've ever seen a person, and after a few seconds, got up and started running back down the hill from where we came. I sat there for a few seconds in complete shock and couldn't move, until my hero started licking on my face. I snapped out of it and ran to the back door and started pounding. They obviously weren't home, or else they probably would have heard what just went down. My house was so close, I jumped the fence and ran the rest of the way home and called the cops to investigate and try to find the guy. I gave them the best description I could after coming practically face to face with him. The dude's bag was gone and so was every trace of him. They found my poor backpack in a muddy puddle and the police told me they'd keep looking. Never saw the guy again and I didn't hear anything more about it, and after calling the police a few more times, I gave up. They told me during that time they had received sketchy reports, people being stalked, chased, etc., but nothing like mine. Over the next few months, there were a few missing person cases, but in a city like the one I'm from, not the worst but not the best, you could never connect anything like that for sure. The more I thought about it over the years, the more fucked up it is and the more confused I am. First, if he was trying to kidnap me, why didn't he think of a better way to grab and snatch me into the forest before I had the chance to get away or before another trail goer possibly walked by? He didn't appear to have a weapon on him or anything except that creepy cloth. And what the hell did he have in his hand? A friend thought it may have been chloroform, but I did research on it and apparently it's more a myth that pouring it onto a rag and covering a person's face causes them to faint very quickly. Plus, where the hell would you get that anyway? Thanks to that asshole, I never walked the shortcut anymore without at least 2 friends and pepper spray or some sort of protection. Hey everyone, first off, thanks for watching the video. This was a pretty cool topic for me to do because I've had some pretty similar things happen to me personally before. Maybe one day I'll even do a video on my own personal experiences when I get the time because I have tons of them. But anyways, there's a couple things I wanted to mention while I have your attention. A ton of you have been requesting merchandise, so I finally made a shop. I only have one design right now, but I'll be creating some more cool stuff in the future. There's t-shirts, iPhone cases, all that fun stuff, so if you want to check that out, links in the description. Secondly, I want to know what kind of videos you guys want to see. I know a lot of you like the deep web stories, but I don't have that many that are ever sent to me. So please comment below what kind of videos you would like to see and thumbs up comments you agree with. And of course, if you have any personal stories that have happened to you, please send them into the email in the description. Make sure that you make the subject of the email whatever kind of story it is. For example, a stalker story, a home alone story, a creepy stranger encounter story, etc. This is very important because it's most likely how I'll find your story. If I don't respond to your email right away, it just means I haven't gotten to it yet. Keep in mind, I will be searching for the stories when I need them for a video, so if I decide to do a stalker story video, and you sent me an email with stalker in the subject, that's probably when I'll respond. So again, don't be discouraged if I don't respond right away. But that's not always the case. I regularly check my email. I'd like to remind everyone in the comments to be nice towards people who submit their stories to me. If someone sends me a story where they're not particularly making the best decisions and you comment something like, "Wow, what a fucking stupid bitch on that one story," then obviously less people are going to want to send their story into me, which means less videos for you. I also just want to thank everyone for the support they've given me lately. I've had a ridiculous amount of things preventing me from making the amount of videos I want to lately, and you guys commenting nice things on my videos and on social media really keeps me going. Speaking of, I have all my social media in the description, and you should follow it if you want to support me and stay up to date with what's going on. Thanks to everyone that's been sending me mail to my P.O. box. I love the weird little knickknacks I get from all over the world. I actually have an engraved corpse husband box where I keep everything that is sent to me. And maybe in the future I'll do a video showcasing everything that I've got if that's something that you guys want to see. But that's about it. Once again, thanks for watching. Shirts and everything else in the description. Stay safe and have an awesome day. Oh, and I almost forgot. Please go like the Facebook page of the thumbnail artist in the description. I had no thumbnail for this video and they came in clutch at the last second, so please just go check out their work and tell them that they're cool and stuff. And if you buy a shirt from my shop, please tweet a picture of you wearing it or Snapchat me a picture so I can see how awesome you look. I already said stay safe and have an awesome day, so now I just have to abruptly end the video because I already edited it.